Hello and welcome to Red Carpet of Hollywood. I'm your host, Marina Kufa, and today we have the honor of sitting down with a retired Chicago police officer and esteemed author, Dr. James B. Bolen. In this interview, we will delve into a compelling insights of his groundbreaking book, Fixing This Broken Thing, the American Criminal Justice System. Join us as we explore Dr. Boland's unique perspective, rooted in over 2 decades of experience within the intricate threads of the criminal justice system, and uncover his passionate call to action to reform. Without further ado, let's jump into this critical conversation with Dr. James B. Boland. Well, thank you so much for joining the show today. We are really honored to have you here today, and we're ready for the big change. So, if you can tell us what inspired you to write the Fixing the Broken Thing, the American Criminal Justice System.
Well, fixing this broken thing, the American criminal justice system it was inspired by the 26 years experience that I have working in the criminal justice system. And I came in with an idea about what it is we could and should be doing for the public. And then I was slapped in the face with the reality of what is being done with the public. And in spite of efforts by others that with whom I worked or of whom I came to know, um, in my opinion, it's just inexcusably inadequate.
Can you elaborate how your experience as a retired Chicago police officer influenced the perspective presented in your book?
Well, my attitude when I first began policing was that my primary job was I worked for the citizens of the city of Chicago, and I was supposed to be working on their well-being on their behalf. And there are 25 different police districts in the city of Chicago. I was assigned to arguably the busiest of those 25 police districts. Our district the 7th Police District generally led the in calls for service, led the city in homicides. It had the highest concentration of mentally ill people in the state of Illinois, the highest concentration of registered sex offenders in the state of Illinois. And a lot of the people, most of the people that lived in that district were poor. So right from the beginning, I began to notice that after making an arrest on behalf of this victim, that there were at times a struggle to get the appropriate charges approved for the offender. Because the way the arresting process worked is in instance of felonies, we would make the arrest, bring the individual into the police station, and notify the felony review section of the Cook County State's Attorney. We also would have to notify the detective division. So they would go over the evidence that we had acquired, the facts of the case, and then the person in felony review would make the decision on whether or not the felony charges were going to be approved. And it was difficult trying to get felony charges approved for some victims. And the only thing that, and especially if you read the law, it's really kind of clear. Because one of the things about criminal law is concerned is that it's written such that a person with a high school reading equivalency can handle it. So I read this, you read the law, and I'm like, this is consistent with the language of law. For what reason would this person in felony review decline the charges? That completely baffled me.
So this is where you begin.
Right. And so I can't give examples because with this one case in particular that haunted me, it still haunts me. I was working the midnight shift, and a young woman called the police to report that she had been raped. So my partner and I responded to the scene, and she explained that it was winter, Chicago. If you've never experienced
Oh, the coldest ones.
okay. And so she lived with her mother, and they had had some sort of disagreement, and so she decided that's okay. I'm just going to leave, and I'm going to take this 6 block walk to my sister's house, and I'll stay over there. Now, in this particular December night, there was about 8 inches of snow, and the windshield factor was like about 15, 20 below zero.
Oh gosh.
Now, my victim was trying to get through this snow on crutches with a broken foot.
Oh no.
So halfway through the travels, she said, it's just getting too cold for me. And she knows, okay, I'm right here by this apartment building where a buddy of mine lives. This guy was supposed to be a platonic friend of hers. And so she stopped there to get warmed up before she could leave and go on the rest of the way. Well, uh, she said that that buddy of hers and his friend had raped her. So they raped her, and then after they were done with her, they made her leave. And not too long after they put her out, they exited the building also and walked northbound on Racine. So my partner and I taking down her information, and we knew that one of the things we have to do in these cases is we had to get her to the hospital. So we had to drive north on Racine to get to the closest hospital. And as we got to the corner, we see these two guys come out of the liquor store because there's a liquor store there on the corner, and she immediately identified those as the assailants. So we pulled over, detained them, called for an assist. So we had two female officers take her to the hospital. We separated these guys, took them back to the police station. Now, the owner of the apartment, or the tenant at the apartment, was definitely not the sharpest knife in the drawer. And after being read the Miranda warning and et cetera, he signed a consent to search form and gave me the keys to his apartment. So I went back to his apartment
Hmm.
with an evidence technician, because their story was that she stopped by their apartment to trade sex for drugs. Now, they said, "Oh, so you deal drugs?" Well, we every now and again we deal a little bit. I'm like, okay, and as we went on,
Yeah.
found out that if in fact these two guys were drug dealers, they were two most broke drug dealers I'd met, because between the two of them they had $7. So I took the evidence technician back to the apartment. Her story was, as after she got warmed up and was ready to leave, he stood in front of the door. He was holding a baseball bat. He told her she could not leave until she had sex with the two of them. They didn't have
Oh.
condoms. They used Glad sandwich bags.
Oh.
So when I went there with the evidence technician, we tore the apartment up looking for drugs, drug paraphernalia, anything that would indicate that this guy deals drugs. Couldn't find anything. We did find the baseball bat, and
Hmm.
we found the two used Glad sandwich bags.
Oh.
That, but we couldn't find the drugs, the drug
Hmm.
paraphernalia. Now, of course, when the victim's at the hospital for the rape kit, and they did toxicology screening on her, as we would have expected.
Hmm.
Uh, Something else that we're required to do with any rape victim, we're supposed to look into their criminal history to see if there's anything in their criminal history that involves prostitution. Since
Hmm.
some prostitutes that don't get paid cried rape, she had two instances in the criminal justice system. She was arrested once for disorderly conduct. She arrested another time for retail theft. There was nothing in her history about prostitution. her drug screen came up clean. She didn't have marijuana in her system.
Okay.
So we bring all this evidence, we bring this back, and then the assistant state's attorney comes to the police station. And and again, we had separated the two guys. So they couldn't talk to one another.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting in there with the state's attorney talking to the gentleman whose apartment this was, and his what he told her was that the girl came there to trade sex for drugs. And he said, yes, he did stand in front of the door and he had a baseball bat in his hand. And he told her she couldn't leave until she had sex with he and his buddy. But we didn't rape her. Now, this guy's about 6'5, 240, 250. His buddy is 6'3, about 220. My victim is 5'3", a buck
Oh
15
my
on crutches
goodness.
with a broken foot. What chance did that young woman have?
Right. None.
Well, well, the assistant state's attorney decided that, well, she did come by there voluntarily, and why would somebody stop by at that time of the night? But she's got no, but he said that she came there to trade sex for drugs. Well, there's
Well, there
nothing
was
that's
no
actually
drugs.
right, and we can't find. Now, well, just charge him with a misdemeanor. Now, one of the things about this too that the television dramas and the movies don't
Mm-hmm.
really into which they don't delve is that this is a long, arduous process. This, because when we first met her, it was a little after midnight. By the time we got this denial on the felony charges, it was 11 o'clock in the morning. Now,
Wow.
during this time, she had been to the hospital. She had to tell her story. First, she had to tell her story to my partner and myself. Then she had to tell her story to the people in the hospital. She had to tell her story to counselors in the hospital. She then had to tell her story to the SVU detectives, and she finally had to tell her story to this assistant state's attorney. That's a lot, and in my mind,
Especially, yeah.
yeah. And so,
And
and during all of this time, I'm coaching her. It's going to be okay. We have everything we need to nail these guys. I have to keep, assuring her that she's going to get justice.
right. Well, she's in a
And
state of shock dealing with so
what,
much, right?
right, because she's been violated in a way that, probably the worst way any woman can be violated.
Yes.
They turned down she said no, we're not. Now there was a recourse. I could go to which I did. I went to the watch commander. I showed him all the evidence that we had, and that we've got enough. This happened. All he needed to do was contact in the Chicago Police Department. We called a street deputy, a deputy superintendent that is out on the street, and that person can come to the police station, view the evidence, talk to the arresting officers, talk to the detectives, and override that assistant state's attorney. The watch commander's response was, "You've been here too long on overtime. Do what she said,
Hmm.
charge him with the misdemeanors and get out of here. Because it's, that
Just
we're
to get
running
it
up
out
the
of the
overtime.
way.
Right. We're running the overtime
Hmm.
up.
Unbelievable. Oh, and there's
That
it's constantly happening. There's more stories like this, like you said, and
well, see,
somebody needs to make
something
the
else that I
change.
found though is that doing my research for the book, of
Hmm.
course, you can't actually know this for certain, but it's estimated that as many as 88% of women that are sexually assaulted never report. And this is one of the factors in that, because sadly the victim is oftentimes, regardless of these supposed to be rape shield laws, the victims get
Right.
put on trial.
Yeah, and I think as a woman, I think that, you know, at first they probably think nobody will believe them anyway, right?
We'll see in this case though, and two, it
Hmm.
got me a little bit more is that the assistant state's attorney that turned us down was a woman.
That's
Because
very sad.
the language is very clear. If you read that statute in Illinois
Hmm.
compiled statutes, it says that if you use force or the threat of force, you are guilty of aggravated criminal sexual assault, rape. That things that I actually handled, and then things also of which I'd come to know, that was a major part of my motivation for writing this book. Because I'm stuck with this thing. I care about people.
When actually did you start compiling all the information through your career for the book?
Um,
Was it at the end you kind
it
of
was
went back to your stories, or?
well, I guess because after I left the Chicago Police Department, I moved to Tennessee, and then I started working as a counselor in the mental health unit at the Shelby County Division of Corrections. So I started working there, and hearing and coming to know situations that brought people to jail, and then also observing things with regard to what was done with some of the people that have been convicted. Um, I let that on this. I say I am an all day, all night sucker for children. Children own
Okay.
me.
Yes.
Okay, that's I'm
Hmm.
and during my time there, I came to know of an individual that had been in and out of jail 3 different times for molesting boys in public bathrooms. And my question is, for what reason do we continually let this guy out? I see if people show you who they are, believe them.
Yes.
Believe it. This is what this guy does. So every time we let this guy out, we're putting other children at risk. And in my mind, that's an unacceptable risk.
I think it's a
It,
mental sickness and that
it,
it's
it,
uncurable
it just
anyway, right?
it just is because then that took me back to another case that I handled while I was policing. And in
Hmm.
this case, this took every ounce of discipline I had. Not to, because my first inclination was I want to take this guy somewhere he and I can have some quality time alone.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
I arrested a man for performing oral sex on his own 4-year-old daughter.
Oh,
See,
it's really tough to be face to face with a person like this.
and at the time, my daughter was 4. So when I
Oh,
was looking at this baby, I was thinking about my baby. So my immediate thought was not handcuffs. It was something else, a lot more
right.
deliberate.
Absolutely.
It was
Yes.
something a lot more deliberate, but
Yes.
I had the discipline not, and I didn't. And what made this story so doggone, I call it motivating, is that during the course of the investigation, I learned that the mother knew what he was doing and didn't tell. I locked her up too, because in Illinois, if you are the parent or
Uh,
legal guardian and you know and don't tell, you go to jail. So I locked
Absolutely.
her up,
Hmm.
but just to show you again about how goofy this doggone system is. See what had happened when I researched what was going on, because when I first met them, the mother was drunk and all beat up. Her face was swollen and etc. And it was a neighbor that was with the mother and the little girl. She's the one that flagged me down. And then the little girl, she said she's got something for you to tell you. So I separated her from them, and the little girl says to me, I said, "Honey, what do you want to tell me?" And she said, "My daddy touched me."
Mm.
So, of course, you get this sick, sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach. And I asked her, "Sweetie, well, where did your daddy touch you?" And she pointed between her legs. And I'm like, uh-huh. I said, "Well, how did your daddy touch you?" And she said, "He licked me."
Oh
Now, I
my
know
God.
children can be coached.
Right.
I know they can be
Hmm.
coached, but I stayed and I talked with this child for some time. I asked her these same questions a different way. She came back with the same time, with the same story each time.
Same
Because I
story.
also know a 4-year-old cannot sustain a lie. They can't keep that going. It's just not in them. So I know this happened to this child. And I had so gone on the radio, had some officers come over because the friend told me where I could find the father. So I had some female officers come over and take them to the hospital. And then I went and found dad. And I just handcuffed him
Wow.
and took him to jail.
And that
But
was it.
part of our process is that once I got him in, I had to call the Special Victims Unit, but I also had to call the Department of Children and Family Services. So when the little girl and the mother and everybody got back to the police station from the hospital, I called special victims again, and they told me, well, the little girl has to go to a different hospital, to La Rabida, has to go to that particular hospital, La Rabida, and undergo what's known as victim sensitive interview. I'm like, but she's been out there to do with this. Okay, well, when are you going to take her there? Oh, about a week. I'm saying, okay, so you're telling me that I have to send that little girl back home with him. And
Oh
they
my
told me that's the
God.
process. And I asked him, say, please repeat what you said. Listen to what you are saying and tell me why you do not recognize how ridiculous that is. But that's the process. So I knew
That's a
then
sick process at this point.
so I knew then I can't let this happen. So I called the Department of Children and Family Services and I asked them, I need you to come to the police station and take protective custody of this child. See, because by that time I had also done the research on what was going on at that address, and there were 8 police reports filed by the mother for including the one the night before for domestic battery. What I found out is that she was walking in on him doing this. She would challenge him. He would beat her up and then he would run. She'd call the police. She told the police about him beating her up, but she never told the police what he was doing to the baby.
Yeah,
And
that
I'm
have,
like, oh,
yeah.
goodness.
And she was afraid.
Well,
She was probably afraid of him that he's gonna, kill her or
I'm
something.
not sure what was going on with her, but I knew that she provided zero protection for this child.
Right.
And so, but so I locked her up though, because that's a violation of Illinois law. And DCFS, they came and they got the baby and they took the baby away and it took protective custody.
Good.
At the end
Wow.
of the day, the mother was convicted of knowing and not telling. The father was never officially charged.
No way.
That's exactly what happened. She got convicted. He was never officially charged.
So he
There's
still
only
does whatever.
there's only one good thing about about the thing that came. The State Department of Children and Family Services took the parents to court to terminate their parental authority. And ma'am, I'm going to tell you, when I have Alzheimer's and amnesia, this I will remember because I had to come there for that hearing. So I got to the building, checked in with the court sergeant. Then I found the right courtroom. Court starts at 9. I walked in there about 8:45. And that little baby ran up to me. She grabbed me around my left leg and she squeezed my leg really, really tightly. And the little baby said to me, "Thank you. Thank you for keeping him away from me."
A 4-year-old.
Hero. I don't have to tell you, I was standing there shivering like a leaf on the tree. You could have
Oh my
walked up behind me and you'd have knocked me on my butt. I was, mm. So at the end, they did. They terminated the parental authority. They awarded the child to the maternal grandmother.
God.
So after court, I talked to the grandmother. I gave her my
Hmm.
card. I said, "Ma'am, if you smell him in the area, I don't care what time of the day or night, you call me. This is something I will handle." And she told me not only can he not come, she can't either. She said they're both out of her life forever. Periodically, I would go by and check. Little girl was just fine. Granny took good care. And
Good.
she also told me that neither one of them even tried. Said the mother didn't even call her and ask her about the child.
Unbelievable. And when was that exactly?
Well, let me see. This is because they were both 29. That's like 25 years ago.
Okay. So
Because
she will be
they're
like
both she was the same
29
age.
now.
Yeah, she was the
Hmm.
same age as my daughter, and my daughter's 29, so this is 25 years ago.
Oh my gosh, yes. It's a heartbreaking story. I mean, obviously happy ending, but it honestly gives me a goosebumps.
It,
It would be nice to see her right now, no?
Yeah,
To
I'm
see
in
her if she's
Tennessee
still
now, and I
in.
guess she's still in Chicago. But I'm just really, really happy that we were able to get her out of that situation.